First of all, good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing great. So today we'll be starting off with the first day of the Compose Camp, and today we will be covering the Kotlin Basics, which will be required, which will be the minimum requirement to go ahead with the Jetpack Compose. So I hope you all are excited. And if you have any questions, then do drop in Q&A. And also, if you have difficult questions that could be long to answer, then just keep it till the end of the session. Then we'll be taking one by one any query you have. And even if you do not have query now, but you get query later, you can just put the question in the Discord or any social media platform that we are in, and then I will try my best to answer your questions. Okay. So for Kotlin, you will be requiring an editor. For programming, you need an editor. So you can go to this site for using the online editor. It would be easy to set up and will be fast to use. So I will be giving you the link in the description. So you can use this editor to practice Kotlin, and you don't need any kind of setup for using this. So it will be great to start with Kotlin. So the our first goal is to understand what programming is, and then we'll be coming to programming language, and then we'll be covering the basics of it. So let's suppose that we have a worker who cannot speak, so we cannot interact with him because he cannot hear also. So but one thing is that he can read very well. So if we want to give some work to him, and we want to make some output of him, then we need to give him some instructions in some paper, correct? So we'll be writing in a manner that from the top left corner of the page, in the page we will be writing, and in the top left corner we'll be starting to give instructions. For example, go to shopping, go to this grocery, bring the groceries, and etc. and etc. So we will be doing this by writing on the piece of paper and then giving it to the worker. So the worker will read the instructions from the starting of the page as we usually read, and then it will start doing the task as per the instructions. So if you write first instruction that go to police station, that he will go to police station, and then if you write second, then register a complaint, then it will register a complaint. So this is how our worker will be working, right? Now there's one thing to keep in mind is that your worker will follow each and every thing that you say to him to do. Now, for example, if you want him to pick a brick that is 100 meters away from him, so you write it to the worker that okay, pick up the brick, but you didn't write that you have to walk 100 meters then pick up the brick. So he will not walk 100 meters, and he will, where he is standing, he will try to pick up the brick. Okay, so you have to keep in mind this logic, that you have to keep in mind. Okay, so what is programming language and what is programming in general? So the piece of paper that we gave to the worker is our program, and each line of instruction that we wrote is the code, and the language in which we wrote that instruction is the programming language. And for our case, the worker is going to be we will be giving instruction in the Kotlin programming language. So as I said that the programming language, the worker will be reading from the top left corner. We usually read from left to right, then when the line ends, then we go to the second statement and go read the second line, and then repeat the process, so and so forth. So this is the same thing that the programming language is going to do, that we will be writing first instruction and then the second one and then the third one, and it will execute in the same manner. So as you can see in the screen, on the screen, that we have some code already written. So these for now, for the sake of simplicity, you can just take these two curly braces as the starting and ending of the page. So this is our page where we are going to write instructions. Okay, and this can be said to be the paper. Like if you give paper to the worker, and the worker will not be looking up in the sky or right or left. It will be He will be looking at the paper only. So it is a way of indicating to the compiler uh, that this is the paper and this is where you should be looking for the instructions. So we will start off with the basic concepts that will be required in the programming. And these are the concepts that you can relate to in terms of like holding a pen and then pushing it against the paper to write the instructions. So to learning to hold the pen and to write something meaningful, that is going to be the our aim for today. So we'll be learning some basics that will be required in the programming venture that we'll be doing in the future. So for now, this will be the basics. Okay. So the first concept that we will talk about are variables. And before that, there is actually a ritual kind of a thing that every programmer does. So your program is like your baby. So whenever you see what people try to do with the baby when they are first born, they try to make them speak something. So what we'll be doing the same thing. So to make the program speak something in Kotlin language, we will do something like we will be writing this print ln, and then we will be putting this bracket, and then in double quotes we will be writing hello world. Okay, and to run the program you can just click run, and then it will say something to the world. Okay, so it says hello world. So this is the first it isn't required, but it is something that all programmers do when they write in their first language. So you can do the same thing. So, and if you want to take notes, just take the screenshot. Okay, you don't have to write everything. You can just take a quick screenshot. So, what are variables? Uh, when you let's take an example of an app called let's say Amazon. When you type something on Amazon, for example, socks, then you enter a word, and then this word is sent to the database, and the result of which gives you a list of socks from various companies, right? So this socks word needs to be stored somewhere so that it can be sent to the database that is far away from us, so that it can retrieve us something. So this we are going to focus on the storing part. We are going to store this word somewhere, and then we're going to send it. So the place where it is stored is the variable, and to access it we use the variable name. Now let's take another example. Let's say I say, what is your name? You gave me some name like Mohan, Ganesh, anything like this. So you gave me a value. I asked for your name and you gave me a value. So your name would be your variable name and your value would be your name actual. That could be, as I said, could be anything like my name Anurag or any other thing, right? So how do we tell the compiler that, okay, this is the variable? So we do it by writing the keyword var, and then we write the variable name, for example, name, and then we use equivalent equality of assignment operator, and then we assign it some value. It could be anything like Anurag, right? And earlier we used some function to print something. We used print ln to print something, so we can use that same thing to print this variable. So we can write print ln, and inside of it we can use the variable name, that is name. Okay, then we will print the name. Okay, so this is the way of uh, declaring a variable with its name and its value. Now, if you see, there are multiple types of values that exist in our world. I asked for your name and you gave me a word of English, correct? And if I ask your age, then it would be some kind of number, correct? So these are different types of data that we need to store. Okay, so we need different types of storage to put these values in. Okay, so the container would be the variable, and now we are going to discuss how many types of data we have and how we are going to store in the variable. So there are multiple types of variable. That could be byte, there could be short, there could be int, it could be long, it could be float, it could be double. Mm, and okay, so these are different types of data that we can store in Kotlin. These are basic types. So what are these? Okay, uh, when we talk about number, especially integer values. Now, when I say integer values, it would be the values like 1, 2, 3, 69, 89 without decimal point. Okay, it could not be 1.23, 6.23 like this. It cannot be this. So it is integer values, negative and positive combined. So these data types represent that category, integers. So why there are four of them? When we say there are infinite numbers, correct? But the computer cannot store infinite numbers. And also to save resources, we need to access only that memory that we actually going to use. For example, if we are going to only store our values between 1 to 10, then accessing memory of that could save like 10 lakh something number in it, then it would be just waste of resources, and it will eventually drain your mobile battery, and other horrible things can happen. So to allocate only that amount of memory that we require, we use different types of data types. So byte is the shortest in the integers. Short is has the range more than byte. Integer has a larger range than short, and long has larger range than int. Okay. Now, if I were to show you how these things work, let me put it here. Okay. So suppose I have a variable that contains a number. Now define that, and now to tell compiler that, hey, this variable is of type this. We use colon, and then we write the data type here. So for example, byte. Now bytes maximum range is 127, and if we try to store more than 127, then it would give us some sort of error. So we can write 127 and we can print it here, and it will print successfully. As you can see, 127, but 127 is its range, and after that if I write 128, then it will give us some sort of error, right? Because it has exceeded the range that it was allowed to. Okay, so this was about byte, short, int, and long. Now let's talk about float, double. Numbers cannot be only integers, it could be decimal points also. For example, the value of pi, it is 3.14, right? So to store that value, we cannot store that in these data types. We have to store it in different data types. So to store it in different data type, we will first mark the variable name with the data type, and then we'll write the value. Okay, and then we can print the what is the problem here? Okay, so here what problem was there, that if you are writing float value, then you have to write after your number f. Otherwise, it will automatically choose some data type for itself, and it will give some error. Okay, so you need to put f after the number. So as to in case of float. So float is again, the range comes into play when we talk about these two variables, these two data types. These two both store point numbers, decimal point numbers, and float has lesser range than double, and I should say precision. The float has lesser precision than double. Now, what do I mean by that? If I try to store a larger value in it, then it won't store, and double would be used to store that value. Now we talked about float and double. Now let's talk about the Boolean value. So we often encounter situations where the answer to the question could either be true or false. So the two values, true or false, are the comes under the Boolean data type. Now this is the data type that we are going to use to uh, to control the flow of our program. So for now, we can just put it in variable. Like for example, is raining? Like we are asking a question, is it raining? And we can say yes, it is raining by saying true, or we can use is not raining. We can use false here. So this way we can put here, and we can optionally we can also write the Boolean data type. Okay, then we can print it also here like this. Okay, so this was about Boolean. Now we are going to talk about character, char, and string. So as I said, your name is a word, and it consists of it consists of alphabets, correct? So character represents every symbol that is present on your keyboard. It could be star, it could be star, it could be hash, it could be A B C D E F, any alphabet, numbers, anything. And the way we assign it to a variable And the way we assign it to a variable is by again writing var and variable name, whatever it could be, then equality, and then here we use single quotes to enter a single symbol, and it could be this, it could be plus, it could be alphabet, it could be a number. So any symbol that is present on your keyboard is a character, and then we can print it also like this. So if you try to store more than one symbols in it, it will again give us some sort of error, because it is designed to contain only one symbol. Okay, so it is better off using one symbol. Okay. So let's say, but yeah, let's talk about your name. Your name consists of several alphabets, meaning uh, several, several characters combined. So it could be Mahesh, Monica, or anything. So for that, we use strings. Now here I'm not writing char because when we assign the value to a variable, Kotlin compiler itself determines what type of data it is storing. So we can write here a char also, and you can also skip it when you're assigning the value at that point only. So we can change this. So we can create here a name variable, and then we can assign it some value. For example, Mahesh, and then we can print it. Okay, so string is nothing but a collection of symbols, or I should say collection of characters combined together. It can contain, and also the character can also contain spaces also. So, and same with the name also. Like if I print like this, then it will contain the space also, and same for the n, same for the character, because space is also a character. Okay, so there was a space because that's why we are not seeing anything. So this was all about the way we are going to store data in our in the variables and the type of data we can store. And these are the data types that we are going to use for several operations in the future. Okay. Now, now let's talk about string templates. You may often see in various emails that your name is also written with a sentence. For example, you can have this sentence, uh, Aman is a very good boy, right? So there is a name of you. But when we talk about large number of sentences, then this name changes as we are talking about sending the email to multiple users. So multiple users will be having multiple names. So this name changes with every name, every user. So the way we can put here a name that changes with time is by using a variable only, and we will put here name, and then we can erase the name from here, and then we can do something like this. So what it does is, this is a property of the strings, that when you use when you use two strings and you use a plus operator between, then it just stashes these two things together. And when we print this sentence to the screen, it will print Aman is a very good boy. Okay. And this process is called concatenation, because it concatenates a string to another string. Now, when what actually happens here is that this name is replaced by its value, that is Aman, and then it just joins both these strings. Now, this is one way of doing the concatenation. This is one way of printing this thing. Now there is another way of doing the same thing, is by using string templates. And what it does is that you can use a variable name inside of these double quotes. Okay, and the way you have to do is use $, and then enter the name of the variable. And in our case, the name of the variable is name. And if we print this sentence, then it will again print Aman is a very good boy. If we change anything like Mohit, then it is going to change accordingly. And this is also something that we can use in the future. Okay, so we talked about strings, we talked about uh, characters, data types. Okay, So now we can move on to the logical part, logical decision part, or I should say control flow. Now, whenever you open your app, it could be Instagram, it could be any social media app, it is not always the same thing. It always gives you something different. It is dynamic, right? And whenever you perform some task, the program on your app changes its output accordingly. For example, when you type when you scroll through the Instagram reels, it is always different, and it decides which reel to show you and which reel to not show you, right? And this is the decision making that the app performs. And the way that this decision making is performed is by using if and else statements. Now, if and else statements are similar to saying, like asking questions that like if I were to use an example, if it is raining outside, then I will be keeping with myself an umbrella, right? And if it is not, then I will not be keeping with myself an umbrella. Okay, this is the simple example. And as we talked about the Boolean values, so these Boolean values are the things that we are going to use for our decision flow, because when we make decision, it is either true to some condition, then we do something, and it is false to some condition that we don't do it, right? If adding a member that is not playing good in the team is good, it is good, so the answer to that question is no, it is not good. So it is false. So we are going to not keep him on the team, and we are going to proceed. So this is the way we can do conditional flow of um, of our program. So we do it by, let's say we make a variable and we say is raining, and we put no, it is not, and then we say if is raining, then we are going to take an umbrella, else print not take an umbrella. So what it does is, this if is about tells that we are asking a question, and here in this brackets we do some calculation in which the result is a Boolean value that is either true or false. And if it is true, and if it is true, then the instruction inside of these brackets, curly braces, then this will execute, and it will just execute this only, and then it will end the program. So if I run this, if it is not raining, then then the answer to this question was false, and then we go to this statement and we printed this, not taken umbrella. So this is it is about saying that if this condition matches, then we are going to do this, and if it doesn't matches, then we are going to do this. It is like this, and we can make our decision flow, for example, like this also. We have a number. We have to find that the is the number greater than or equal to 5, or it is smaller than 5. So we say number, and then we use the comparison operators, that is greater than or equal to 5. Then we are going to say to the screen that it's greater than or equal to, and if it isn't, so this statement executes when the above condition doesn't matches. So if it isn't, then it's smaller. So if we execute this code, it will first see that whether this condition is true, that number is greater than or equal to 5, which it is. Then it will print this, and it will not execute this, and it will just end the program. Now the questions we can ask more than one questions, and for that we use else if operator between if and else. Now for example, I have to find that whether this number that is this variable number, the number that this variable is containing, comes between 1 and 5, or 6 or 10, 6 and 10, or 11 or 15. So we can do this by saying number is greater than is smaller than equal to is greater than or equal to 11, right? Then we will print it is greater than 11. And if the above statement is not true, then we will come to this statement, and it again asks the question that, okay, if it isn't greater than or equal to 11, then is it greater than or equal to 5, I should say 6? Then if it is, then we will print it is greater than 6. And at the end, if it isn't greater than 6, then it would be definitely greater than 1. So we will use else, which is used to denote if any of the above questions doesn't answer in true, then execute this program. So it will write it is greater than 1. So if we execute this program, it is going to say it is greater than 1. So first it goes to here and it says, okay, this number, that is this, is it greater than 11? The answer was false. Okay, and because of that, this line of code wasn't executed. Then we asked another question that, okay, if the previous one is not true, then is the number, that is this number, is greater than or equal to 6, which it isn't. So we do not execute this program as well. Then we come to this part of the program where we say that, okay, neither of the previous statements were true, so execute this program. So it executed this program. So this was about the conditional flow using if and else statement. Now, one thing to remember is that we can generate Boolean values using these operators, which is greater than or equal to, smaller than equal to, greater than, smaller than, or it could be not operator. Now, not operator, we haven't talked about it, but it just inverts the Boolean value. For example, if the resulting Boolean value of the question is true, if the resulting value of the Boolean expression that we talked about, like number is greater than equal to 11, so this generates a Boolean value. So if the Boolean value of this is true, then not operator, what it does is it inverts the value. So for example, if not, we use bracket, number is greater than equal to 11, then print that something, let's print something. Okay, now what it does is it first replaces this variable with its value, that is 5, and then it compares that it calculates whether this expression is true, which isn't. So the resulting value of this expression would be false. Now, not operator, what it will do is it will invert this false, and the resulting statement will be true. And this way, this program will be executed. Now, let's write it again. So so the conclusion is that this program will be executed, and it does. And it is also not compulsory to attach else statement to if. You can use if separately. There is another way to decide to do the decision flow of your program. That is by using then expression. So it is like English statement. So you can relate then, and we use the then keyword, and then inside of these brackets we would write number, and then we tell, like, if the number is so what it does is, now it matches the number with every value that we are going to write. So um, let me write something. Okay, so what it does is, it takes a variable or a value, then it matches against each value that is present here, and if the value matches, then it executes the program that is on the right hand side of this arrow expression, which is printing 11 if it is 11, or printing 12 if it is 12, and printing 5 if it is 5. So you have to use this arrow operator to direct it towards your code. So in our case, the number is 5, so it should print 5. Now, just like in if else statement, like if all of the above questions resulted in false, that means any of the code that we wrote above the else statement didn't execute, then we can write a else branch in which that this program will be executed if none of the above statements were true. So if I were to write here 13, which is not in the option, so we will get this message like this. So this is another way of controlling the flow of your program. You can also add brackets here, and you can write multiple codes here like this, anything like this. So just remember to add these braces if you are trying to write multiple lines of code, and if you only are writing one line of code, so it would to not use those curly braces. Now we are going to talk about more operators that are and, or, I think, and
Hey
or.
Anurag, to questions pending. Would you take them?
Yeah, sure. Can you? Okay.
Asking that is Kotlin a case?
Case sensitive, meaning that if you have two variables like num and another variable that is num, then these two would be different. So it is case sensitive. Does that answer your question? The name
Uh,
of the variables and functions would be case sensitive, and if they differ, if the name differs, then both the functions, variables, or anything would be regarded as separate entities.
Also, Karthik was asking a big doubt. I guess his doubt is cleared now, and he's asking about how to take inputs.
Okay, so in inputs, we are not going to take like the inputs in Kotlin programming language, And here also we cannot take because the editor doesn't allow us. It is just a read-only editor. But you can take input by using, I think scanner is in the input, but it is not required for our course. We are going to be taking input through user interfaces, so we'll be focusing our focus on the Jetpack Compose only and interacting with the user through Jetpack Compose only. So taking input is not necessary, but if you are curious, then you can look on the internet only. Okay, you're welcome, Karthik and Mohan. Uh, is that only questions? Okay. So, okay. Mm, back to the if-else statement. Okay. Let's say I have a variable number that is 3. Uh, and another variable that is 1. So I have to print, the task would be to print hello when num and na are equal. Uh, okay, let's go with the equal only. If they are equal, we are going to print hello, and if they are not, we are going to print hi. Okay, so we can write if num equals to na. So we, for comparison, we use the equality comparison operator. Okay, so use this to compare that if the two values are same, and if they are, we are going to print say, let's, and if not, then we are going to print hi. So they were not, they printed hi, and if they are same, then they're going to print hello. Now there is one more thing that is important, that is using the and or operators. So what it is that, let's say we have to print a hello world statement when number is 2 and na is 1. Okay, so for that we will be writing a question statement like this: if number equals to 2 and na equals to 1. So we need these two statements to be true to execute our program. So how do we say that if both are true, right? We want to return a result true if both these statements are true, and that thing we do with the AND operator. We use AND operator to say that if this statement is true and this statement is true, then only we are going to return true. And if any of these statement isn't true, then we are going to return false. So if it is true, let's say lottery. If it isn't, we say bad luck. Okay. So for now, the value is 3, 3, which means it is not 2 and not 1. So it is going to print bad luck. Okay. So let's put and num equals to 2. Now this statement is true, but this statement is false because the value of na is 3. So this AND operator, what will do? It will turn all the statement to false. So it will again print bad luck. Now if we put na equals to 1, then both these statements, okay, if both these statements are now the both these statements are true, then the conclusive result would be true. So we are going to now print lottery. Okay, So this is about the AND operator. What does OR operator do is that if this statement is true, then it is going to return true, no matter what the resulting Boolean expression, Boolean value of this we get at the end. So if this statement is true, then also it will get executed. If this is true, then it will get executed. If both are true, then it will get executed. But if this statement is false, like for example, if any of these statement, if one statement is false, but the other one is true, then it is going to be executed. If both are false, then it will not get executed. Now for our example, let's put these values different, which means that both these statements are false. So it is going to print bad luck. Now we are going to put NA equals to 1. So this statement is true, but this statement isn't true. So the resulting Boolean value that we'll be getting because of OR would be true. So we will be executing this part of the code. Okay. So these are the operators that you can also use in determining the logic of your app, and it is going to be very useful. I talked about the NOT operator and or complete. Now we are going to come to the loops. Now let's take an example like let's take our worker back and say that okay, this is something. We gave him an instruction of paper, a paper of instructions, in which there are instructions written, and we told him that okay, when this is completed, do these function do these instructions 3 more times. Okay, so it could be like laying a brick. Okay, you laid a brick, then you lay another brick on top of the previous brick, and then you go again and again. So the instructions are same that you have to lay the brick, but but we have to repeat it number of times. And instead of writing that particular code, for example, writing hello world multiple times like this and so on, it is not very efficient, right? So we can use loops to to do these instructions multiple times. Now how do we use loops? One of the loop is repeat, and we use a repeat keyword. Then in the brackets we tell it how many times we want it to repeat. Let's say 5 times, and then in these braces we enter the code that we want to execute this many times. So for our example, we will be putting this code here, and it will be printing this hello world 5 times. Okay, then you can change it to your will, and it will be executing that many times. Now this is one of the loops, but sometimes so for example, for some time you may require this number, like how many times this loop has been executed. You might want the number. Okay, this for the first time when it executed, the value should be 1, or second time it should be 2. In short, you need the iterative counter to keep track of how many times this loop has been executed. So for that we can use another loop, that is for loop. In this it is kind of English, so bear with me. Okay, so what it does is we use the for loop, and then we write here a statement that okay, I is a variable that is in, this is called the range. Okay, these two dots tell the compiler okay, the number is 1 to 10 inclusive of 1 and 10. So what it will do is for every loop it will assign one number in between the range including and in between the range of 1 to 10, and then it will execute this code, and we can access this variable, and I have used string template to access this variable, and then we can print to the screen the number of iteration that has been performed up to that point. So this is the result. So for the first time the value of I would be 1, then the second time the value would be shifted towards 2, then it will be 3, 4, 5 up to 10. So in this way you can use the for loop. Now if you want to go backwards, then you can write, like if you want to go from 10 to 1, then you can use this statement. What it does is it starts the counter from 10, it assigns value to I, and then it goes down to 1 and repeating the statement that is between this between these curly braces these number of times, that is 10 number of times. So this is another loop. There is another loop that can be used, that is while. So it tells that okay, while this statement is true, execute this program. So the basic syntax is this: while, in here we write the condition. So let's say we have a variable num whose value is 0. So we say while number is greater than is smaller than 10, then print line num. We will be printing number, and we will be incrementing the number by 1. So in this way we are incrementing the value of number by 1 and assigning it to number itself. So this statement will result in a Boolean expression, and it will be checked every after every loop. So when the first loop ends, then it will go back to this while loop and then checks if this condition is true. If it is true, then it will execute this code again and then go back to the while loop, then execute this again, and so on and so forth. So we have added number 1 to the number, so that when it reaches the number 10, this block of code would be number 10, which will be replaced by 10, would be less than 10, which will be false, and this program will stop, and finally we come to an end. We can print it out like this. So we started off by 0, we printed 0, then we incremented it by 1. Okay, so we checked the condition, then again executed, and after the last execution we printed the end. So that is for the loops. Now we are going to come to the functions. Now what are functions? When we write, when we talked about the example that we want to execute this part of code multiple times, right? And we can use loop for that. But what loop does is it executes that part of code. Uh, it executes that part of code at the same time. So for example, if you have a code that says print hello world, so it will execute one after another. You cannot like you can buy if else statement, but you do not have much more flexibility with it. So you have to execute your code uh, collectively. But what if you want your piece of code to be executed when you want it to execute, but you do not want to write that code? What do I mean by that? For example, I have a let's say sum. Okay, I have to write here 2, 3, 0, a equals to 1, b equals to 2. And so here what we are doing is that we have had some variables with some initial value, and then in the sum we are just putting the sum of the two variables, and then we are printing the variables, then we are changing the variables, and then putting the changed variable sum into the sum variable, and then printing out. So here you notice that what we are doing continuously is that adding these variables, right? But what if we want to do not want to write this line of code, like printing the statement, then storing in sum, then printing line, then printing the sum to the screen. So what if we do not want to do this? We will put this code in some function. Okay, so what function does is it's a separate, it is a collection of code in which can be reused whenever you want it to. So it reduces the number of lines of code, which will be very efficient for our development process. Now let's create a function. So how do we create a function? We use the fun keyword, and then we write the function name. It would be add, and then we have some code between this. Now functions also take now functions in itself can do some work, like let's say let's print name, print let's say print hello world. Okay, let's take this example. So for example, we want to write hello world. Okay, so every time, instead of putting the value in this function, we can simply call this function to do the same task. Okay, and then we can do some other work, and we can again call the same piece of code. So what it does is it calls the function. What it does is it executes the code between these braces, and then again it continues its other work, and then if you want, you can use another you can reuse the function or that piece of code that you want. So like this. Okay, so let's get back to our example. For example, if functions are of many types. Okay, functions can also return values. So let's first talk about the arguments, then we'll go to return value. So these brackets are there for a reason, and it is for taking in external input so that we can use that to do our task. For example, I have two variables. Uh, variable I can We do not have to write var in it. It automatically generates variable itself. So we can simply put the name, and we use the data type of the variable, because the function should know that what kind of data that is coming into the function. So we can write here int b int, and what it does is it sums both and prints the sum. Okay. Okay. So it takes two variables that are of type integers, and we have passed two integers in it. And what it do is that in place of a, the a will be replaced by 1, and b will be replaced by 2. So a will contain the value of 1, and b will contain the value 2. And in this, we will create a local variable, that is sum, and we will be storing the values of these two parameters, and then we'll be printing. So the sum of 2 and 1 is 3. So instead of writing these two lines of code, we have reduced the number of lines and we have printed using just single line of code. So this is the function. This is the use of functions, that is to reduce the number of lines of code. Even though this is a very vague example, but we will see in future that the functions are uh, used for uh, uh, separating various pieces of code that can be required in the future, but not immediately, as we used in the for loops or repeat loops. So this is the function that takes parameter. Now, if we want to return, like we can also bring some output from this function, and the way we do it is by after this bracket we write colon, and then we write the return type, that is the data type of the value that we are going to return. So let's say we are going to return int, because the sum of a and b is going to be integer only. So we can use return statement and return the value. Now what it does is, after this code is executed, so this statement will be replaced by the actual value. So the answer would be 3. So the sum here would be 3, and it will return 3. So we can store that value in the result, and then we can print the result. Okay, so this way we can also take output from the functions itself. So we have learned that how we can pass the values to the function to work with, and how we can return the value of the from the functions. Now keep in mind that you type in the right data type while returning, because if it isn't, then it is going to give some sort of error. So okay, so we talked about functions. Okay, so as I said, these are the parameters. These contain the values that we pass here, and these are used for some internal functions. Like for example, here we sum the word sum. We take the sum and return the sum. Now the parameters, the way of passing values to the parameters, one way of doing is by simply putting value against the name of the parameter. Okay, so if I'm writing 1 before first at first position, then it will be equal, and then a will be equal to 1, and I'm writing 2 at the second position, then the parameter that is at the second position would be equal to the will contain the value that is at the second position. Now another way of passing these values is by using name parameters. Now how do we do it? We write the name of the parameter. For example, a is the name of the parameter, and then we can write it equal to any value that we want, for example 12, then comma to refer to the second parameter, and then we can write 23, and if we see, the result would be 35. Now this name parameter is used when there are lots of parameters here, and we often forget that at what position which parameter should have been given. Now to explain that, we can write here, uh, let's say C is a string. Okay, so we have to pass in a string. Now, for example, I forgot that C was at the third position, and I wrote without name parameters. Um, I wrote here, let's say I thought that the C was at first position, so I wrote here a string hello, and then I wrote the numbers after that, like this. So it will give us an error because the a will be expecting an integer value, whereas it is getting a string. Okay, so it will give us an error like this. Input type is string, but int was expected. So it was expecting integer value, but it got this. So to solve this problem of confusion, we use named parameters. That is by referring to the name that is in the parameter of the function, like this, C, and then assigning the parameter the value, and we can use parameters to assign the values, then it would be working just fine. Okay, so this is about the name parameters. Now there is also another problem that we face, that when there are lots of parameters, some of the parameters have very common value. Okay, so we do not have to assign that, give that parameter continuously that value again and again, because it will again increase the size of the code. So what we can do is we can assign it a default value. So even if it doesn't get any parameter that is corresponding to that parameter, so it will assign itself with that default value. And how do we do default value? Is by putting equal to sign, uh, equality of assignment operator against the parameter and its data type, and then writing some value like hello. So we can print here the C, that is this parameter, and then we can see if even if we do not provide C here, then it will contain this value by default. See, it it printed C without any value. And if we provide some value to it, like world, so it will not use this value because it has gotten the value, it has gotten the new value, so it will use the new value itself. So it will use the new value to print it. This was about the default values. And now, okay, now we are going to talk about Lambda functions. Now, what are Lambda functions? Lambda functions are anonymous functions. Like for example, if you want to create a function, then you have to write a fun keyword, then you have to write the name of the function, could be name, then you have to use this bracket, then you have to use this bracket also, and then write the code here, which would be simple hello world. So uh, when we require like a use and throw function, which we do not require in the long run, but we require at that point, there doesn't seems to be a point of logic in creating a function for that particular case only. So in order to achieve the functionality of the function but not creating a function, we make use of lambda functions. Now, what are lambda functions and how to create them? We can create lambda functions as any other variable. We write variable, then we write the name of the variable, like for example, lambda. Okay, and then what we do is we write this, and then we write the code in it. For example, how are you? Okay, and then this will work. This variable will work as a function. Now you can call this function itself, so it will execute it. And we talked about declaring data types, like telling the compiler that okay, this is the string data type, this is the int data type, this is char data type. So the way of doing in lambda function is, first we use this bracket, and then we use this arrow, and we tell the compiler what is the return type. When there is no return type, we use the unit keyword, unit data type. Unit data type is nothing but nothing. Okay. So what this tells the compiler is that, okay, this is a lambda function. Okay, name of the variable could be anything other than lambda. It can be lambda also. So it tells the compiler, okay, it is of type function which returns nothing. Okay, and if you try to return anything, it won't return. And you cannot use return keyword here, but there is a way to return value. So how do we do it? Let's make a lambda function for adding two variables. Now the way we do it is by creating a variable, then assigning it value, and in the brackets we tell the compiler, okay, what is going to be the parameters of the function. As we saw in the previous example, it was a, b, and c. These were the parameters. Now in here, we have to tell the compiler, okay, what are the parameters, what are the data types of the parameters that are going to be used. So let's say, for example, it would be int and int, because we are going to add two values, and it is going to be returning an integer value. Okay, and then we will return return the statement by just simply writing. Uh, okay, so we define parameter. Okay, we need the name of the parameter also, so we can write it by doing this. Okay, so what it does is that it tells the compiler, okay, it is expecting two arguments of type int, and it is going to return it. And in the function itself, these two are the parameter name that corresponds to the data type. We cannot use the named parameter here. We have these two parameters, and we can use, and after this arrow, there is going to be the code in which you are going to use these parameters. So we can simply write a and b, a plus b, and this add function, what it will do is going to return whatever the last statement is. Okay. So let's say, for example, we print the result of the function, and we pass in 1 and 3. So it returns 4. In Lambda functions, the last line is the thing that is going to be returned. And if the last line result is unit, then it is going to return unit, which is nothing again. So before the return type, you can obviously do any sort of task like printing a is then using okay. So in this case, you will be printing the value here. So it is going to execute like any normal functions, but the only difference is here in the declaration and the way we name the parameters. We can name the parameters anything we want. Again, a b c b c. So, and the thing is going to be the same. After this code, the entire code will be executed, and you can use these parameters. And as the number of parameters will grow, you can grow the number of uh, parameters. It is necessary to have this many parameter names here before the arrow, because if not, then it is going to again give us an error. So we can say statement, and then we have to print that statement also. Okay, we didn't pass any value here. So it is going to execute like this. Now, okay. So we have talked about variables, its data types, string templates. We have talked about the control flow using if-else statements. We have used when. We have used various loops. including repeat, for, while. We have used lambda functions, we have used parameters, we have learned how to return values from the uh, functions and how to return values from the lambda functions and how to set default values in normal functions. Their default values are not there, and that's it. That's going to be for the Kotlin basics. And these are the things that are required by you to learn so that you can understand and use Jetpack Compose, because these are the things that are going to be used the most. And I think that is it from my side. Okay.
Guys,
So
if you have
this I
any questions, please drop in
just
the
one
chat.
minute,
Okay,
just one
okay.
minute, continue. Okay, so I think there was a lot of content today, so you might feel overwhelmed from it. The thing you have to do is just go through this lecture once again if you don't understand, and just write the code. If you don't know what it is doing, just write it and try to uh, tinker with it, and then just try to do as much as error as possible, because errors are going to give you useful information that what you are doing wrong. And if you have any questions about what is the error that I'm getting on, or why am I getting the error, you can always put it on the Discord. Then there I will be answering to your question and I will make you understand. It is due to the time constraints, because of which I have to cover it so fast, and so it is going to be overwhelming, guys. But I hope you do well, and Siddhi, you can continue.
Yeah, I was telling you to share your screen and tell people to join our Discord. And in Discord, we have a channel dedicated to scam where they can post their doubts. So, mind sharing your screen and showing that to people.
Where you can.
Also, till the time he's doing that, if you have any doubt, you can post in the chat itself.
Okay, so here is our channel. Here's our Discord group. So here you can see there is this compose camp in which you can post compose related queries or issues, and I will be there to help you, and other also who are on the panel with the Android experience their best. So there you can post anything you want. I think that will be it. You can join the Discord by the links that will be shared to you, right?
Also, if you want these sessions will be productive, make sure to join the next session on 16th September on the same timings, I guess. We'll update about the timings in the Discord. It will be 6 for sure, I guess. But if there are any changes, we'll inform in the Discord and Telegram. So make sure to join them and keep your fluency with the stuff that is taught to you.
Okay, so if you have any doubt regarding, like, doubts will be there. So that is the doubt that is coming to your mind. You can just post it in the chat, and I will be answering to it, because there was a lot of content. Okay, I'm seeing previous questions. Khushid Dwedi asked, like, in how many days will complete Android development? So it depends what you mean by complete Android development. It is like you want to complete the Android operating system, or what? If you want to make basic apps, in that sense, you are saying complete Android development, then it would be like you can start off in 2 weeks only. You will be good to create basic apps. then by creating those apps, you will experience errors, and then from them you will be learning, and then you'll be moving forward. So guys, any questions you will be having, please drop down in. If you do have any queries regarding the workshop, then you can also ask that also about the future content and anything regarding Android development in general.
Anu, what are the topics you are going to cover on 16th?
So on the 16th, okay, so before the 16th workshop, you have to download the Android Studio because we are going to uh, do our development. We will be starting our development in Android Studio as we have covered the basics that will be needed for the basic app development. So we'll be starting with writing actual Android uh, applications, and we will be starting from day after tomorrow, that is 16. So we'll be using Android Studio as our editor. So you can download it from their website. I will share the link of which in just a few minutes. Yeah, shall I okay, so this is the Android Studio link. So you have to install it. Uh, Hope you install it before the next session because in which we'll be using that editor only. Anyone having any other doubts?
Let's wrap up the session.
Okay, so if no one is having any doubt, we can wrap up this session. Okay, so thank you everyone for your precious time. I appreciate that you come and joined us, and I hope you the best in your journey with Android, and hope you complete the course of which link has been given to you. Okay, you're welcome, Mohan Singh. You're welcome, Anurag. And that's it from today. Good night, everyone. Okay,
Thank
so
you everyone for joining in. Let's meet at 16 and make this session way more productive. Bye bye. Good night.